Welcome back to SOUQ Business Landscape. Now, the federal government says the Dangote Petroleum Refinery would not have been able to commence operations under Nigeria's former petrol subsidy regime, arguing that subsidy removal was necessary to create a viable market for private refinery investment. Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Taiwo Oyedele, made the claim on Wednesday in Abuja while presenting the government's Nigeria Reform Scorecard, the benefit, cost, and harms prevented. Now, the argument highlights one of the government's central justification for removing the subsidy, allowing private refineries to compete in a market where petrol price reflects more closely the cost of supply. For consumers, however, the benefit depends on whether increased domestic refining eventually translates into more reliable fuel supply, lower import dependence, and greater price stability. The Dangote refinery's performance will therefore remain an important measure of whether the reform delivers its intended long-term gains. Doctor, do you agree with this assertion? Can it be substantiated that the old regime wouldn't have benefited Dangote's refinery operations?
Not at all.
Why do you say so?
Because, number one, government would not be able to pay Dangote subsidy. So they won't be able to be in operation. Just imagine, for example, the difference. We're selling petrol at 180 naira per liter. And that petrol today, Dangote is selling gantry price at 1,180 something naira. Look at the difference. Who would have paid the 1,000 difference? Federal government that was printing money. It would have been a wasted investment. Absolutely. So in my view, Dangote is even one of the biggest beneficiaries of the subsidy removal. And I think, of course, we must state it the way it is. Because we knew that the petrol was not priced properly. Government was paying the difference.
Yes.
So how long would the government have been able to sustain paying the difference would have been the problem. So maybe by now would have been owing Dangote trillion and trillion of naira without hope of payment. So Dangote maybe would have been selling to people outside. So whichever way we look at it, the reform has helped a great deal. The government is allowing the forces of the market to determine the pump price of petrol has one of the benefits of that reform. So the market distortion was taken away completely. So Dangote is not doing Nigeria any favor right now because he's doing his business and he's making his profits. And then Nigerians are not suffering too much because we are still struggling to be able to pay for these services. But the beauty is that it has brought light to the oil and gas sector of the Nigerian economy, and now it's looking profitable.
So apart from which Dangote has always attributed Naira stability, what other role is the domestic refinery sector, domestic refinery, what role are they now playing in the Nigerian economy?
Well, right now we don't have that refinery producing. It's only Dangote that's actually doing very well, and one or two modular refineries that is trying to also join the fray. But like the last conversation of the president with Nupeng, based on the arrangement with these Chinese firms, hopefully we will see the participation of other domestic refinery participating in the market and actually making it more robust in terms of competition. So it's no longer a one-source market type or monopoly. So that we are expecting to happen. But before that happens, we just have to make do with what we have. And that is who is actually helping Nigeria to drive its economic relevance globally. For the first time, you're seeing that Nigeria is even able to supply aviation fuel to not just Asia, but to Europe. And that's quite very, very commendable, even to the US. So if we didn't do this at the time we did it, probably the Dangote still would be in the works. Or maybe it started, it couldn't sustain operation at the tempo at which it's going. So removing market distortion was a plus because subsidy would distort prices and affect other people who are legitimately struggling to see how to contribute to the economy. And I think that's what the subsidy remover had done. And so when other refineries come on board, the same privilege that Dangote is enjoying, that's what they are going to enjoy. But the beauty there now is that the competition will be between this new refinery and Dangote refinery. And if the competition is healthy and there is no what they call agency nature or collusion between this refinery, it can actually drive down the cost of pump price of petroleum with time. So we need that healthy competition to start. And we really encourage that government sustain its liberalization of that sector, reduce the regulatory stranglehold on the upstream sector so that a lot of people can actually participate. And if we have more refinery in Nigeria, the better for it, for the masses at the end of the day.
All right, so let's back up a bit. When we were doing fuel subsidy, what was the gain? What was the government trying to achieve? Yes, fuel was cheap at a point, though there were leakages here and there, corruption and all that. As to now that fuel subsidy has been removed, fuel is, of course, is not as cheap as it was before. So how would you weigh the benefits? Let's not look at the disadvantages. Let's look at the benefits from what we were currently operating before and now. Would you say the government has achieved far greater?
Well, I think it's only in the last 3 years that we see people travel really without panic of whether there's going to be fuel scarcity, there's going to be long queue. We can't forget in a hurry the inconveniences that was created by long queues, where Nigerians were buying petrol in 5-liter keg for 20,000.
During the fuels?
Yes, during the subsidy regime, yeah. You have boys who are hawking petrol on the road. And 5 liters they will sell for 20,000. We were all born. It was not something that happened before we were born.
But that also happened during fuel subsidy removal at a point.
No, since the subsidy was removed, nobody is selling keg of petrol in the...
It happened at a point when fuel was scarce.
No, we have not experienced scarcity since the removal of fuel subsidy from May 2023 to date. So, that distortion in the market was huge because a lot of people were scrambling to buy petrol in keg and the disasters that all came with it. So you find a situation where your price in the pump is 184 naira, but you're actually buying the petrol in the pump at over 800 naira. That was the situation. Petrol attendants became rich overnight. So government is paying the subsidy to help the poor. The poor are never helped. And it is the people who are distributing this petrol that are making the kill. That was the situation where we were. So the subsidy that was meant to actually have ameliorated the conditions of the very poor people ended up exacerbating it.
But fuel was cheaper.
You see, when you say fuel is cheaper, but you didn't have the fuel. You have months of queues. I remember, I think it was in 2011, for example, or 2011 or 2009, we were in a program in the United Arab Emirates, and one of our friends was telling us a story that happened. Then he was the director at the Abu Dhabi School of Strategic Study. How the Sheikh, the ruler of Abu Dhabi, came to Nigeria and saw the confusion on the road, and he said that was haram, and called the then president, our late Musa Umaru Yar'Adua, and said, look, what's the problem? This is haram. How can you be producing oil and this confusion is in your country? And that was in Abuja. So he asked them to actually come, and they went for a strategic section in Abu Dhabi, and they came up with what they call the Abu Dhabi Accord, really that never saw the light of the day. But the point is the fact that we had been in that place where today there's petrol, tomorrow there's no petrol. Because sometimes the marketers come and say, oh, government is owing us so much, we cannot do importation. So government is running up and down looking for how to borrow money to pay part of it so that petrol can come. Those distortions were in the market space. We can't forget that in a hurry. And so over this time that the government has come and said subsidy is gone, we have not experienced it. That you see for 1 week, there's no petrol in the pump. Or people are carrying keg of petrol in the street to sell. So what happened was, yes, some people say, oh, there was a way we could remove the corruption. It's not just the corruption. It was the destruction that was brought in. That the people who were selling petrol were wanting to sell where petrol were higher. So they take those tanks to where they can make more money. And the places where they feel they cannot make money, you remember those days, yes. DPRO will be moving from petrol station to petrol station to find out if people have petrol. They were sealing petrol stations at that time.
Yes.
Because a lot of people were hoarding it. Now, who is hoarding petrol today? Nobody. You drive into a petrol station, buy your petrol, and you move away. The way it's done everywhere in the world. So what created that distortion was the subsidy itself. And I think that's a gain that we cannot all overlook. That people say, okay, we are buying at the right price, and the products available is not scarce anymore. Because scarcity itself is a problem in a free market economy. So that people cannot go to where they want to go to. They are not having access. Generators are not running. People are not doing businesses. These were the distortions that the regime of fuel subsidy created. But right now, we are not having those kind of problems anymore. So you remember those days people were saying, okay, just increase. Tell us how much we pay. We don't need to be wasting and spending 3 days queuing in petrol station to buy petrol. Those things really happened. And in our own lifetime, that somebody will stay on a queue for 3 days trying to buy a keg of petrol. All those things have been taken away. So what we are hoping to happen is government allow more participation so that that free competition within that space can create real healthy competition that can drive prices down considerably for the average consumer. Not that we can get to the price where it was at the moment. And if we don't have so much money that we have saved, we cannot continue to support subsidy. And we would have borrowed to a point that nobody would have been willing to even borrow you money anymore. And it would have made worse. And I think that is the point that the government trying to make. But beyond that is the fact that we will need to live and deal with our reality, which of course every state at the time has gone through, whether it's in the US, the era of the petrodollar, there were a crisis because petrol became so expensive. Even now as we speak, the crisis is not over. Every country is facing their own kind of petroleum crisis. It's not just Nigeria. America is the largest producer of crude. But petrol is not as cheap as people talk about it. So these are issues that we must have to deal with in the long run, that if we have to create prosperity in our environment, we must sanitize the market.
So what is the future outlook? How do we also encourage more people into this particular sector? How do we reduce dependence on imported fuel? Should we tax fuel imported? What incentives can the federal government come to play so that at least we will see some form of reduced cost in transportation and even in businesses?
Well, I think there's a whole lot that's going on. I saw yesterday that NNPCL group manager had a meeting with, I think, was it Rwanda or so, and they were thinking about how to ramp up production of more crude and make it a lot more efficient. Shell, we are told, is bringing in a lot of money right now to revamp their operation in Nigeria after they have left. We're seeing local participation. And I think the ecosystem is right now. It's right at the moment. A lot of participation is happening. We just hope that this trend continue. There are narratives out there, especially when we are seeing...
All right, we'll go on a short break and we'll be right back.
Fellow Nigerians, did you know that constituency and executive projects in your communities are not gifts from your legislators? They are projects sponsored by the legislators and funded by the federal government to improve your life and the lives of those around you. These projects belong to you. Without your vigilance, they might never be completed. Don't allow them to fade away into unfulfilled promises. Stand up, take ownership, monitor their progress, demand accountability, and report concerns to ICPC. Call our toll-free line now on 0800-2255-4272 or WhatsApp only on 0806-656-4726. This message is brought to you by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, with support from MacArthur Foundation and the Center for Democracy and Development in Africa, CDD.
Hello Nigeria, hello Africa. Yeah, this is Sound Man. Keep watching SOUQ News.
My name is Babalola from Excel LED. Keep watching SOUQ News.
My name is Shepherd Michael Adewale Onofuye. I enjoy you all to always watch SOUQ News TV.
Hi, I'm Tom Bogaballs, and please keep watching SOUQ News.
Wale Seriki, SLG Lagos Island East, SOUQ News, keep out watching them and keep a lookout for them. They're up and coming, and we're proudly to be affiliated with them.
You alone where they make me go crazy. This your love in the cool of my brain. You're my medicine, I need you all day. Yo, it's Blackface Nigeria, and you're watching SOUQ News TV. Keep it locked on this dial, don't change it. You know what I say? Blackface Nigeria, love no bad.
Welcome back to SOUQ Business Landscape. All right, Doctor, we were talking about how the federal government is planning to ramp up more crude, which is a question I even wanted to ask. How would Dangote Refinery and newcomers have more access to crude so that there'll be less dependence on imported crude?
Well, I think there are a lot of decisions that we should take, which, of course, some people are actually having conversation around whether we will have the effrontery or the political will to pull out of OPEC that has outlived its usefulness. So we are no longer really determining, OPEC not determining the quantum of crude we can supply. So we can sell as much as we can produce. But unfortunately, even as we speak, we are still struggling with the OPEC quota because of, again, the irregularities within the sector. A lot of crude is stolen. We cannot account for everything that we are producing. So if those security areas are tightened, and then we are now able to actually invest more in crude production, then if OPEC is not allowing to sell what we are producing, we can exit OPEC and then produce more to be able to feed these refineries that are emerging, and then we can have a kind of a dominance within the African regional market in terms of petrol supply and its allied products. So that for me is what it is. We just need to do what needs to be done. OPEC is becoming a clog in the wheel, and we must find a way to take it out. But how the other members of OPEC take it is another different kettle of fish. Because in international trade, what is important is the fact that if you are not trading from me, we can start to blackmail you. See that happening when Nigerians started to look outside the Bretton Woods institutions for loan and facility. And you see all the blackmails that you see from those agencies with all manners of rating and appraisal of our performance. And some of these things are not with genuine intentions and motive. It's because they see that you are not trading more with their economic enemies, in quotes. And so they must blackmail you to say, oh, you are not doing well, you are shady, and all these things to whip up sentiment. So you have that happen in international trade. So I just do wish that government will have that courage to be able to say, well, if OPEC is not allowing us to prosper, then we exit that agreement and do business with those who are willing to do business with us.
All right, so what benefits were we getting, or are we getting, from being a member state of OPEC, and what benefits or repercussion or whatever would we stand to gain if we exit OPEC?
Well, I think the real reason OPEC exists is to see how to stabilize the prices of crude in the international market.
All right.
So what that means is that countries are not flooding the market, and therefore the prices go deep down. That's what OPEC is meant for.
Regulation.
Yeah, regulation, so that you can control the volume of crude that's available, and therefore you can maintain price stability over a period of time. Because whatever it is in the market, we answer to the law of demand and supply.
Yes.
So if there's excess supply and there's no corresponding demand, then people will be forced to sell even below production cost, and then you are not getting anything. So that's the reason why OPEC exists. But there are other intervening variables right now that, even at that, some things happen, and then, of course, nations are kept in a cage that they can't do volume because OPEC has placed a restriction on what they can do. And being a signatory to that protocol, we cannot just back out and do it the way we want it. So for some, it's like a hindrance right now. But what extent can OPEC determine the price of crude today? It's another kettle of fish. We can see how the Strait of Hormuz is determining the price of crude today, not OPEC.
Yes.
So all these things are issues in international trade today that need to be reconsidered, whether the association has outlived its usefulness or is still providing the requisite stability that is needed in the crude market to make member country profit, as it were.
All right, so let's move on to the next topic. Now, the Nigeria Customs Service, Apapa Area Command, recorded a historic 28.10 billion naira in revenue within 24 hours on Tuesday, August 18, 2026, marking its highest single-day collection. Now, the figures surpassed the command's previous record of 20.1 billion naira collected in September 2025. Now, the command's public relations officer, Isaiah Suleiman, said the latest performance reflects continued improvement in revenue collection under Customs Area Controller Emmanuel Oshoba. Now, the record points to stronger revenue mobilization at one of Nigeria's busiest trade gateways. Higher custom receipts could support government finances while reflecting increased import activities, improved compliance, or more effective collection system. However, sustaining the performance will depend on maintaining efficient port operations without creating excessive cost or delays for legitimate businesses. Also, the wider economic impact will ultimately depend on how increased trade revenues translate into public spending and infrastructure. This is quite a huge, if I might say, Guinness World Record. In a single day, it's quite huge, 28.10 billion in a single day.
Yeah, it's when your collection mechanism is efficient and there are no leakages and people walk into the system. We just spoke about the one single window.
Yes.
How it has helped reduce a lot of issues with over 108,000 people on board. And this is encouraging for revenue optimization. And I think that's what we are seeing play out in the performance of custom. But again, it also speaks to the wider understanding that a lot is happening in Nigeria. Even when we cannot see it in the pocket of the average man, there's a whole lot of business that is taking place in Nigeria. And if we can have that record in one single port in 24 hours, we're not talking about Lekki Deposit, we're not talking about what is happening at the Onne port, we're not talking about what's happening in Warri, we're just talking about what's happening in Apapa here. In a single day, it tells you that there's so much that's taking place right now within the Nigerian ports. We are doing a lot of business. I remember I served in the port toward the late 90s, and those days the port were dry. Nothing coming. The only thing that you see those days was rice from Ishaka Rabiu. And so there was nothing happening in the port. If they sent people to the port those days, it was like sending people to Eza. I served in Tikan port, so nothing was happening. So we are in an environment now that you see a lot of operation happening within the port, and I think it's something to also celebrate. Not just the revenue that is coming in, that people are still doing a lot of business with Nigeria is something that's worth celebrating. And we can only pray for better days that people who are investing this huge resource for import or export are actually getting value for the work they are doing. And the workers who are laboring night and day to ensure that these businesses stand, they also get their own reward right here on earth, not in heaven.
All right, let's quickly move on to the last story. Now, no fewer than 146 candidates in the 2027 presidential and governorship elections could collectively spend up to 571 billion naira under the campaign expenditure limits prescribed by the Electoral Act 2026. The figure comprises 19 presidential candidates, each with a campaign spending ceiling of 10 billion naira, and 127 governorship candidates, each permitted to spend a maximum of 3 billion naira under the Section 92 of the new Electoral Act. The potential spending highlights the enormous financial scale of Nigeria's 2027 elections and the challenge of monitoring campaign finance. While spending limits are designed to promote fairness, transparency, the effectiveness will also depend on how well the electoral authorities track donations, advertising, logistics, and other campaign expenses. Now, for voters, the key issue is whether the huge sums translate into genuine policy competition rather than simply giving wealthier candidates greater political reach. Quite interesting, Doctor. 571 billion naira is what is projected to be spent for presidential and governorship election. How do you also monitor? Because monitoring also is key. How do you also monitor that these donations are coming from a reliable source, not money laundering, not any sort of corruption? What do you think? What are your expectations towards this election coming up? And how do we also ensure, because vote buying is also there. We can't stop vote buying when there's poverty, in the land. How do we also ensure? How can INEC step up?
Well, two things. I don't think vote buying is a result of poverty in the land.
You can't tell a man who has not eaten.
And that's not
money.
And that's not true. A lot of people who have not eaten reject money. It's not
in Nigeria.
Oh yes, vote buying is not a product of poverty. It's a product of greed.
Greed.
And sometimes also a product of ignorance. So we cannot always attribute it to poverty, because there are poor people who have decency and they will not sell their votes. And if you even look at it, the people who are collecting money for these things, they are not actually poor people. Where this money is going into to buy the votes. So it's not in the hands of poor people. It's actually in the hands of people who are well-to-do. So let's not use the argument that because people are poor, that's why vote buying is lucrative. No. There are a lot of people who are so greedy that you have to settle them for them to be able to say they are mobilizing people for you for whatever reason that they call it. So it's not for the poor. Because what gets to the poor, if you factor it together, is neither here nor there. So vote buying is a product of greed. We must establish that. And number two, I also feel that a 540 billion
naira
estimate of expenditure in the next 5 months is overly too conservative.
It's larger than that?
In short, I'm telling you, we should be looking at the region of between 20 to 30 trillion in this election. Look at the accusations and counter-accusation trailing SOUQ election, which just happened in less than 1 week. Ayofayose was in the studio today and said Ademola spent more than 40 billion in that election. And Davido came and said, oh, APC spent over 60 billion in that election. So if these accusations are anything to go by, it gives you an understanding of what it will mean for 36 states governorship alone. So that can be within the region of 500 billion. We're always looking at the limit of the law. Let me give you a practical example. Atiku is pursuing a case in the US.
Yes.
For the lobby group alone, he has spent $1.3 million. If you convert that into naira, that's almost 2 billion.
But that's not for campaign. It's
election spending. It's spending on election. Then they are going to hire lawyers, senior advocates that are going to earn in billions to be pursuing pre-election issues and the rest of it. These are spending. Then, of course, you now come to their appearances in media with their aides. These are paid for. They are not free. That's a whole lot. People are going to print banners. Billboards are going to be hired. These are electoral spending. And then, of course, stakeholder management will require a lot of money.
Mobilization. Too.
Yes. Moving from village to village, city from city, donating money at every institution. All these things is money involved. And I don't know how the electoral umpire is able to actually monitor this spending. It's difficult to monitor, especially in a country where record keeping is still a very big problem, where data are not easily accessible. I was talking to a friend of mine 2 days ago, and he said to me they have crisis in their business over 3 billion was moved away from their account. And they can't even track where the money has gone to. 2 weeks ago, he said about 800 million was moved. So if people can move money from accounts like this, and you cannot trace their whereabouts, is it the one in the house that they will be spending that you are going to track? There's a whole lot of money that is outside of circulation that CBN cannot even oversight. So for me, it's a conservative estimate. Politics in Nigeria has become increasingly too expensive that we cannot expect it to galvanize development or good governance. So for me, it's an issue. And I think it was Patrick Lumumba who argued in one of the presentations he made here that he looks at what, for example, political office holders are earning vis-a-vis what they are putting in the election. And he's saying, what are they seeing that all of us on this side cannot see? That they are investing this so much to earn this little? Or are there things that all of us are not seeing? Definitely and obviously, there are things that we are not seeing. And if they are putting this volume, it's not, even if it's a charity, you must be expecting some thank you and a way to recoup back so I can continue to do the charity. So for me, this is big. We must find a way, and I think our own citizens must also begin to reject some of all these allures from political office holders so that in the end, we can hold them accountable, because you can actually not eat your cake and have it back.
All right. Thank you very much, Doctor, for your time on SOUQ Business Language. Thank you for your thoughts, and thank you for your insights.
A pleasure to be here this morning. We wish Nigerians well, we wish Africans well, and we pray that this continent become really the mother of the other continents in the world.
The African giant. All right, that's our SOUQ Business Landscape for today. From the cost of economic reforms, the stability of the Naira, to domestic refinery, digital trade, customs revenue, and the huge financial scale of the 2027 election, one thing is clear. The numbers tell a story, but what matters is how these numbers affect the Nigerian economy and everyday life. I am Olumide Shokaya. Thanks for watching SOUQ Business Landscape. Stay informed, stay ahead, and always look beyond the headlines. Have a productive day.
My name is Bayo Olaoye. No elected official should take the oath of office until tribunals decide all petitions. This is the position of the Justices of the Court of Appeal and other judicial officers who participated at a workshop to review the performance of the judiciary in the last pre-election litigation season, identify areas of shortcomings, and work on ways to improve the process. In today's news talk, I will be examining the recommendations of the workshop and reactions from legal luminaries on the issue of deciding elections petitions before swearing in. One of the recommendations of the workshop was that the election disputes should be concluded before any winner of an election takes the oath of office. It also recommended that the Constitution should be amended to provide that all pre- and post-elections matters shall be heard and determined before the winners of the election takes the oath of office. That Section 187 of the 1999 Constitution should be amended to include a new subsection stating clearly that disqualification or non-qualification of a deputy governor shall not affect the governor-elect or governorship candidate of a political party. It is also the recommendation of the workshop that all pre-elections appeal should terminate at the Court of Appeal. Participants resolved that the state of the transmission of results must be revisited and reviewed to avoid the kind of controversy surrounding the transmission of results in the last 2023 elections. The participants asked the Alternative Dispute Resolution ADR to be introduced into electoral laws with the passage of the Arbitration Mediation Act 2023. They contended that the negative publicity in which the judiciary was portrayed in bad light by the social media and other forces associated with it should be countered by a robust communication media department to be established by the respective courts. Rights activist Clement Nwanko of the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, PLAC, reminded the gathering about the important role which democracy plays on the third arm of government and why it must always play such role effectively. Nwanko noted that the involvement of the judiciary in elections has continued to be very important, adding that it meant that there were a lot of expectations from the judiciary. He observed that the perception of the citizens of the judiciary had become much more prominent and advised that it was an issue that the judiciary must address by ensuring that its judgments and other decisions reflect justice. Mr. Nwanko argued that for a lot of Nigerians, the ability of the courts to dispense justice was always the basis of trust and confidence in the Nigerian judiciary. Achieving this, he added, required robust legal frameworks, effective enforcement mechanisms, and a commitment to inclusive electoral practices by all. He tasked the civil society, media, political parties, and others with the responsibility of embarking on massive sensitization of the public on the rudiments of the electoral law. Reacting to the recommendations, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Chief Mike Ezekome, said he agreed with many of the recommendations because they aimed at enhancing the efficiency, fairness, and transparency of what he called the warped electoral process in the country. However, he held a different view on some of these recommendations, especially that we said that the Court of Appeal should be the final arbiter in governorship election. This, he said, cannot fly. Chief Ezekome described as salutary and commendable the recommendation that election disputes should be concluded before swearing in. Another senior advocate of Nigeria, Joseph Nwobike, said he completely agreed with the proposals, particularly the suggestion that all litigations should end conclusively before the winner are sworn in into the electoral offices. He added that the suggestions coming from the judges themselves was a welcome development will advance the core values of democracy in Nigeria. Mr. Nwobike believed that if the proposed amendments are made to the existing provisions of the Constitution, all the parties concerned, including INEC, will align themselves to the law and that Nigeria will be better for it. I am Bayo Olaoye.
Dr. SOUQ Adedeji, whose leadership has significantly transformed Nigeria's tax administration, is a distinguished first-class graduate in accounting from the prestigious Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and he currently serves as the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS.
I firmly believe in the wisdom encapsulated in the statements. Revenue growth is the lifeblood of a national economy, providing means to fulfill essential duties to its citizens. These words capture the core principle that will guide us as we navigate the challenging terrain ahead, ensuring that our nation thrives and fulfills its obligations to its citizens. In our pursuit of greater fiscal future, we are determined to align ourselves with President Bola Tinubu's Extreme Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee. This collaboration will enable us to shape the prosperous fiscal landscape that will empower our nation's growth and development.
Born on January 8, 1978 in Ogbomoso, Oyo State, Nigeria, Dr. Adedeji is an accomplished accountant and public officer with extensive expertise in corporate taxation and public
money.
He has also made the welfare of the staff a top priority, fostering a positive working environment that has brought smiles to the faces of FIRS employees nationwide. Supporters of the tax reform bills highlight several key benefits, harping on the need for streamlined tax processes that could reduce bureaucratic hurdles and foster an environment where businesses can thrive.
He has initiated a lot of reform which dovetail into the tax reform bills that is before the National Assembly. This initiative is to improve on the tax administration system in Nigeria with a view to improving on the collection systems that will be beneficial to every member of the Nigerian state. SOUQ, as is well known, has improved on simplifying tax reform even within the federal landowner revenue, which in no means has improved on tax administration, and he celebrated essentially for the core initiative of the tax reform.
Under Dr. Adedeji's leadership, Nigeria's tax system has gone beyond mere policy adjustments. Its focus is on fostering sustainable growth and ensuring that the benefits of tax reforms reach both businesses and citizens.
So those that are attacking the bill, one, they are doing that in view of the formula they discovered, which may not be, will not augur well for them when the bad allocation. And then secondly, they may be having the feeling that this law was just designed to favor Lagos State in the course of its own effort to become a state. Of the headquarters of the company that produce the good or services. You should have defined that in the law.
Contributing to long-term national development, Dr. SOUQ Adedeji's career is a testament of his unwavering commitment to improving Nigeria's financial systems and enhancing revenue generation, showcasing his exceptional expertise in corporate and public finance.
A new generation of Nigerian artists is breathing life back.
Discovered. The museum is administered by the National Commission for Museums and Monuments and remain a key educational and historical attractions for visitors. Another prominent artifact housed within the museum is the famous Benin bronze head, an evidence to the artistic excellence of the Benin Kingdom.
The museum has a lot of functions, some of which are to educate, to entertain, research, interpretation, conservation and preservation of our cultural heritage. And then the museum was established, Lagos Museum particularly, was established in 1957. It was formerly referred to as Department of Antiquities. So, well, the journey so far has been interesting because, we are here, to showcase our cultural heritage, not just to the country, but to the world. And we've had, we have series of, events that we do, that involve the community. And because of that, we create that awareness that this is where you can come and, see and feel your cultural heritage, your traditions, your history. Because it is said that a people without a history is a people without identity. So the museum portrays this to the people. And over the years, that is what we've been doing. Through education, community participation, we have galleries, that we display some of our objects, our antiquities, that showcase our patrimony and all there is to know about
in their corporate organization. They deem me free to come to National Museum anytime they feel like we are missing the link, we have missed a lot of things concerning the way of life of our forefathers. Even here, apart from that, we do have what is called seminar. We organize seminar for expatriates, for individuals. They come around on Wednesdays to come and listen and learn on cultural-based subjects.
I think it was great. I mean, I particularly like the circle of life that are presented in here, right? From birth to reincarnation to external influences. I think it gave a good history of Nigeria. I learned a lot about that. There seems to be some real big connection between Nigeria and Benin in terms of the history that I wasn't totally aware of. I was able to see the different artifacts and stuff that were presented. So it was quite interesting. They did